Welcome to the CCDC Effect, our series of interviews with the people who understand the tool of urban renewal and how to catalyze economic development, public safety, and shape the built environment, especially in downtown Boise and beyond. Hey, today I'm joined by Shellen Rodriguez of SMR Development. She has a lot to share with us today about housing in downtown Boise and her experience with urban renewal and CCDC specifically. Shellen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's so nice to see you again. We have a lot of history together over the last decade or so, and I'm eager to jump right into it and have the viewers and the listeners learn more about you. So tell us about your past career that's led up to where you are today and what you're up to now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could say a couple big points, right? My history with housing and then my history with urban renewal and CCDC. So I started my career in the early 2000s and I was really focused. I worked for a housing authority, which is like quasi-government, and then some statewide nonprofits, and then finally for-profit, but all developers in the affordable housing realm. So I like to joke, affordable housing is a thing right now, and it has been probably since 2020, really on a national level, but I've been in it for way longer. So back when I started, people didn't really know what affordable housing was, and it certainly wasn't even an item on the state level or local agenda in most places. So I did that. I was doing that mostly in Montana. Then I moved to Boise to work for one of the largest affordable housing developers in the country. And then took a hiatus from the affordable housing realm and really wanted to get connected to Boise. And so that's when I spent over 5 years at CCDC working under your leadership. And that was a great time in my life and in my career because I got to learn Boise. I got to understand Idaho law and urban renewal and the role that it plays in creating the communities that we live in. Play in and work in. And then in 2019, I went out on my own and started SMR Development. And we focused for the first few years primarily on affordable housing and urban renewal consulting. And now I'm really moving into the development world. So I've developed a handful of residential projects, some with a mix of uses, but that all have a workforce or attainable housing or affordable component.
We felt really fortunate to have you join us when you did at CCDC, and we needed that knowledge on the housing side because we had some ideas of our own in 2014, 2015 to get some work done, learn about how CCDC could help or assist developers and bring more housing to downtown Boise.
Yeah.
And thankfully, you were there to guide us, and we kind of kicked it off with a housing study. Tell us what you remember about that and what that led to.
Yeah, it was great. And it's important to set the stage or the context in that one because back in 2014, 2015, there was very little housing in downtown. Affordable housing really wasn't like a hot button item. It wasn't something that people understood. It wasn't a high priority of cities or states. It was really about, in Boise, and I think many communities like ours, it was really just about getting people to live and work in downtown areas so that they could, generate economic impact, right? So in 2015, I think we worked with Leland Group and Echo Northwest to look at our downtown, look at the services, look at comparable rents of condos and rental products in the areas of our districts to try to convince developers and try to create a narrative for them and their market analysts and their debt to say, hey, you can build nice, high-quality rental units in downtown Boise and fetch higher rents than you're getting, in the outskirts. And that study, I would say, coupled with some really willing developers and local construct, now known as Roundhouse, come to mind as sort of having experience from other marketplaces and coming in and helping us as CCDC as well as other residential developers and our lenders, right, and our debt and equity in the community to say, you can build really nice product here. And, that study said, make sure you allow pets, make sure you allow dogs, because people will pay more in their, square footage rents for pets and pet amenities. And so you had these creative developers that would come to town, that came to town and were able to say, we're going to build something really nice in downtown. We're going to create aim for a 12-hour, 18-hour city, whatever, however you want to call that. Mm-hmm. And really, creative mix of uses, create a vibrant pedestrian scene, create some cafes. And that allowed the market, I would say, and the comparables to increase, so that then now we've got many different communities, residential communities downtown. And so that really that study really helped bring that to fruition.
It comes up now and then with the housing developers and the people who have followed suit, right, and invested. It was really an unknown at the time.
Very unknown, yeah.
There had been a couple of high-end condo projects in downtown over in the recent history, the Afton, one of our projects, and then the Aspen and Jefferson condos over at 4th and Jefferson that Bill Clark had done. But there hadn't been a new for-rent, apartment complex in downtown for a long time before that.
And it was like the Oahe converted from hotel to apartments at just within a few years, and then the Fowler came online, and then and I have to remember which one was exactly first or second with the Fowler and the water cooler, but I think the Fowler was up first.
Water cooler followed that. That's right.
The water cooler had been used as a venue for the Duck Club.
That's
when
right.
the Duck Club was starting as, this like incubator. And it was hard to say, hey guys, we're moving on to create housing here. But at the time, now there's a mix, there's a coffee shop and there's live work units, and they were some of the first live work units in downtown. And I would say, really big success. And then, not to talk too much, John, but the Fowler was, it was really the first new construction, right, of apartments. And,
there were a lot of skeptics, like, over there, you're going to try to build apartments. Where will people park?
What's over there?
Are there any restaurants?
There was no Wilder. I mean, Trader Joe's was there, right?
Yeah.
But there was no Wilder. There was no, that all of that didn't exist. And was George's there?
It hit about that time.
George's
further
was
down the block.
Kind of going in.
Yeah.
But it still felt like it was sort of a dead space between two superhighways.
That's right.
Myrtle. But the developer had faith, and what they needed in looking at their numbers was they had to build parking, and that's expensive. And we went through a lot of effort to basically commit early on to a bridge loan. Essentially, we will give you money to create this public parking garage if you keep one floor public. Mm-hmm. And we went through a lot of effort to do that. And what that really looked like from an underwriting perspective, there was no money. It ended up that they decided they didn't want the public parking garage, and they wanted all the parking for themselves, and they didn't need the bridge loan, which was great because it proved out that you could build parking and residential units and get the rents needed. So it was this sort of amazing ability for the public at CCDC to step in and say, we got you, to help with this cost of public parking. And it's going to have to be managed. It's going to have to meet our parking specs. And it was a whole thing about, making sure that it was high enough and tall enough and it met our parking requirements. And at the end of the day, if you don't need it, that's okay, because you've created what we wanted to create.
It really
the housing
couldn't have worked out any better.
Couldn't have worked out. It didn't cost us a thing.
Well, we did buy signs and actually install them. It said Park Boy. So we used those at another place, but our signage was up.
It went that far. Okay,
yeah, it got that far, and then it came off, and that was absolutely fine. I remember the groundbreaking for the Fowler, standing out in this vacant lot, thinking, is this really going to happen? And, Mike Brown spoke, and Ed Miller was there, from Givens Pursley, who was the attorney on the project. And it was, okay, here we go. And then they ran into the toughest winter we had had in some, we'd had in some time, but they came through it. And then it really gave others confidence. And I think it's kind of funny. People would listen to us talk about how amazing the Fowler was to be built. And all these other things have been built since then, just one after another after another. It's like, what's the big deal about that? It's like it was a big deal.
And not to mention, I mean, I know like housing development and I know downtown development, but they brought in a great restaurant owner who has really changed the restaurant scene in Boise, right?
Yeah, and it all goes back to local construct and Roundhouse.
Yeah. But it's just interesting how that residential development, bringing in the mix of uses, of which included a pizza place, really good pizza place, right? The Wilder, and then, multiple other residential units with restaurants, really creating a downtown and other like tertiary communities or tertiary neighborhoods that I don't know that would have happened without that housing needs study to the Fowler kind of what I'd call like a bridge loan or a confidence loan.
And that's CCDC is a Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we will innovate, we will stretch whenever we can to make it work for the developer. And if you really want to be in a private-public partnership, you've got to be willing to do that on both sides. And they were perfect. And then, like you mentioned, the water cooler, which was property CCDC had purchased years, prior. And we went with the Type 5 that I believe you managed. And we ended up with, once again, local construct.
Yep. Did a competitive RFP, ended up with local construct, live work units, great coffee shops. I mean, it's a great little part of the western part of downtown.
Established a whole new residential area. So the your time at CCDC also included creation of a new urban renewal district. And there aren't many people who can say that they were in charge of creating a new URD. So, and I think that might have been late in your time at the agency. I hope that's not why you left.
No.
But we were so pleased that you came to work for us and you gave us the 5 years that you told me you were going to give us. you stuck to your word.
Yeah.
And tell us about standing up Shoreline.
Yeah, it was a really hard and exciting time but it was so nuanced. I mean, the rules and the requirements of the findings, and I did work with Echo Northwest again on that one. No, it wasn't. It was SB Friedman.
That's right.
But there's some very real threshold items, I would say, that need to be sort of met, both legally and then also just to pass. In the court of public opinion, right? Just things that need to be thought through that are really nuanced in urban renewal law. And so that was fun, learning it and understanding it. And then, also a little bit like trudging through the community outreach process, I should say, and really trying to determine, well, where do you put the lines, right? I mean, you're next to Boise State. That doesn't create I mean, there was some things. What could we do with the river? What do we think? How do we want the riverfront to look in the future? Is there a place to do more? Should we be doing less when it comes to, actual development? And also, knowing the history of Boise with the Greenbelt and the sort of the conservation mindedness that went behind the Greenbelt and creating a really beautiful park-like atmosphere. And then how do you mix that with development?
Right.
And how do you think about this interplay between Boise State and the river and commercial spaces in the Lusk District, and make sure that the river stays healthy and that there's nice, good open spaces that connect the parks, but also have places for people to truly interact with the river. So it was really fun. The
framework plan that you came up with includes a pedestrian bridge from Shoreline. We're from the Lusk neighborhood, basically La Pointe, across the river, connecting roughly at 11th Street, which the agency just reimagined and rebuilt a few years ago. So
cool.
So that bridge is still in the plan.
Yeah, great.
But you'll be happy to know, finally, there's some movement on the the streetscape standards for that neighborhood finally. So we're working on that with the city. We just started this month, and then we're also studying the north side of the river to separate bikes and pedestrians along the Greenbelt. So
where the old roller, call it the rollerblade shack.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So your work is continuing. long after you left the agency, but it's in great hands with our current employees in the cities, in all the way in on it now. So it's going to be a good result, I think.
Cool.
So you left CCDC, and what did you move on to, and what are you up to now?
Yeah. So my first years after leaving CCDC, I really was doing a lot of consulting work. But one of the biggest things that I did was partnered with local developers to apply to the Type 5 CCDC site, which was 1710. I think 1710 Idaho,
right.
Which was right near, it was right behind the old creamery building and such. And so we put together a proposal, and it was a couple years. I guess I think the RFP came out in I want to say spring of 2020.
That's correct.
Right in the crux of
right at COVID.
Of COVID. Yeah. I mean, it was really in it. And so I think we got it awarded in 2020. We built through the supply issues that were happening that were sort of Visser Construction did an amazing job on that one, but we were awarded the RFP. We put together prior to getting the RFP awarded, and probably the primary reason why we got it was that we really did a land acquisition between the creamery units, the church parking lot. And so we were able to leverage CCDC's land with adjacent properties to build something bigger.
That was a great stroke by your team.
Yeah.
And one of the properties that you were able to get, I believe, was what we called the jerk house.
It was the jerk house. Yes.
Jerk.
Yes.
I don't know if we should explain, and maybe we'll get a photo on the screen. Spray painted on the front was the word jerk.
Jerk. And it was an old abandoned single family. And if it had been in its heyday, it was an adorable house, cute house. And it was not in its heyday. I mean, there was bushes practically growing up through the foundation and
unsavable.
And jerk spray painted on it. And this is a funny story at our community meeting with Pivot North Architects and SMR Development. And I don't even know if DeChase was there, my partners on that project at the community meeting, but there was a handful of people coming out, about 30 people. And I, of course, got there 15 minutes early, and we had to, the city rules where you have to have it on site. So it was a vacant site with the jerk house there. And I pull up, and there's 5 or 6, maybe I don't know, early 20 skater guys that are drinking beer, and it's the middle of the day, drinking beer and using pieces of concrete foundation to make jumps, to make skateboarding jumps and parkour / skateboarding park. And I pull up, I'm like, oh my gosh, how's this going to go? They're smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. I'm like, hey guys, you want to come to our community meeting? And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, we're creating, hopefully 45 units, 48 units is what it ended up being. But the neighbors came out, and it was just a really, they were not all happy that we were doing it. That's initially. Right. And I have stayed in touch with some of them, and they are happy as can be, right? I mean, the abandoned house that was it was falling apart and not attracting the best uses on the old site is gone. It's a lovely neighborhood. It stays rented. It's a lovely, I say neighborhood, I mean lovely building.
It is.
That stays rented. It's got a local artist that created the mural on the side. It's, arguably at the time, parking was a big concern. And certainly we didn't have it parked 1-to-1, but we utilized on-street parking, and it seems to be working there.
It's really worked.
I haven't heard any real complaints. I don't know that I would as the developer, but it created sort of this missing middle, a lot of studios and 1-bedrooms, a couple 2-bedroom units in an awesome location for somebody who wants to be close enough to downtown, but maybe wants a little bit. It's really in a neighborhood of single family duplexes, right? It's not a high rise. You don't get to an elevator. It feels a little more quaint for those people.
Explain how the deed restriction works on that one for affordability.
Well, that one, and part of it was there's a couple different deed restrictions, but at the end of the day, if I recall correctly, there was 2 primary ones. One was, and they were both sort of worked through the negotiations of the RFP, right? If it weren't for CCDC, there would not be the deed restrictions, right? I mean, CCDC was leveraging the land to create those deed restrictions. And they basically say that you have to average out rents at 100% AMI, and I think these are in two different documents, and you have to have a few units that are dedicated to very low income folks using either catch rental assistance or Section 8, more traditional Section 8 rental assistance. So there's 3 units in that building that are basically reserved for folks that would otherwise be facing homelessness. That was part of a program that the city had sort of identified with developers. It wasn't like a if you build this, then you have to. It was more of a if a developer was interested in doing it. And my team and I really were interested in trying to figure out how to make that work. So between CCDC wanting missing middle income housing, knowing that our rents were capped, average rents capped, and trying to really serve a few units at pretty low income, it's a great mix. It's just a great mix of units there that I'm really proud of.
I am as well. I mean, it's a textbook example of how CCDC should work with the developer community. And the speed with which that one happened is something that will be tough to match. We first became aware of that lot through a little program we had at work called Walk Every Block. And
that happened. That was just starting when I was leaving.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think it was like in its infancy, maybe.
Yeah. And Doug Woodruff had snapped a photo of this basketball court / skate / whatever unicycle, broken concrete. But it was owned, and someone had it, and they had run into difficulty because of the level 1 investigation, and that there was some dirt that needed to be mitigated. We're here for that, right? I mean, we can take that on, and we did.
Yeah.
And then you coming in and doing the assemblage, and the whole thing took from when we closed on the property until you had your certificate of occupancy 32 months, and that's going through the RFP process. Somehow, you guys pulling together the ownership, the assemblage, and there it is, the Martha. It's a beautiful success story. The other assemblage that you worked on is resulting in a brand new YMCA. I don't know if you remember, you and I went and met with the YMCA in 2017, trying to get them moving, but they were focused on trying to get a Meridian YMCA built.
Just trying to open that.
Waiting to do the Boise thing, and we were eager and ready to go. We had the property. So tell us about the role you played on that and what you see happening there.
Yeah, I can't wait to go by on my way home today. But 1010 West Jefferson felt like how do I say it? The piece of the puzzle that needed to be controlled, meaning it was a pretty large building, pretty large portion of the block. Idaho Sporting Goods we had purchased.
Sporting Goods had been purchased end of 2017, December 2017.
Yeah,
we bought that off market.
And then
early 2018.
So this piece is adjacent to it, right behind the alley, I suppose. Knowing that, hoping that the Y was going to be able to move forward at some point. I worked closely with the broker, Jay Story, and leadership at CCDC, as well as the board, obviously played a major role in identifying that building as one that could be bought, that leases. The tenants that were in there could kind of stay most of their lease in that way, like not having to really try to break a ton of leases and kind of hold on to it for a little bit in order to instigate sort of a bigger, more transformative project. So at the time it was a little risky perhaps, but certainly, I mean, lesson learned. I mean, a few years later, it is happening, right? The things that we outlined in, if we buy this, if we own these 2 pieces of property, we can assemble, the state site was across the way that had used some of the parking lots, so we can assemble their parking lot with the state or work with a developer to do so, and the Y owns this site, and we could really make this block, which is block 68.
Block 68, yep.
This block a public-private partnership with the help of us assembling it and owning it. And it was genius. I mean,
yeah, it really was.
I mean,
I think
I'm
you
not
and
the genius. In
no,
the room,
I think
but it was a really
there's
good move.
it's shared.
for
I think it was a concept born in the halls of CCDC at our level, and we made it happen. And getting the Idaho Sporting Goods property at 421 10th Street gave us the land to exchange with the Y, and opened up the door for them to build their YMCA where they really wanted to build it, which is where it is today.
Yeah, on state, right?
And we had committed to building something that would cause others to build things, and that's a multi-use parking garage. So we're going to have ground floor retail, and
Cool.
and that's all designed. It's groundbreaking is in July, a month from now, and we're on our way. And we own half of Block 69, the north half of Block 69 for future housing, which there was a design approved, but it'll happen later.
Sure.
And we'll have the parking in place. So it's fun to revisit that.
Yeah.
Because we shared a vision at this employee level at the agency. We were able to run the pipes and get the votes we needed. We didn't get a unanimous vote on that acquisition, I do recall. I remember clearly that meeting with our board. They weren't all in, and that's okay. We got the majority.
I think I may have worked on more projects that didn't receive unanimous votes than most people at CCDC.
That's right, but we were innovating. We were pushing the envelope and challenging the status quo, which is sort of what it's a credo, within the halls. It's like, yeah, maybe not everyone on our board's ready for this, but we get 5 out of 8, and we're on our way.
And I'll tell you, I mean, I love consensus, but I don't need consensus. I mean, in the sense of sometimes it's better to move forward.
Man, I couldn't say that better myself. I love it.
It's unanimous is amazing, but sometimes if you're doing something that everyone agrees with, then maybe it's not quite as innovative as it could be.
Yeah.
So I was always a little maybe more comfortable than others with a not quite unanimous vote.
Does that carry into what you're doing now and what most of your projects are focused on?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've never really thought of it like that, but I will be thinking out loud for the next moment. And it does, because as a developer, I am constantly doing things that not everybody loves. Just constantly. I can't. There is never a project that is perfect from everyone's perspective. So I'm constantly challenging the planners. I'm constantly challenging my debt and equity. I'm constantly challenging the community and the neighbors. So yeah, I'm okay with a little bit of conflict.
Yeah.
I think it's just my personality in that way.
So what are you into most currently? What projects do you have in front of you?
Yeah. So I'm super excited. I have a great partnership with a developer, well-known developer here in town with Brighton Companies to do affordable housing. And so we have our first 9% tax credit project closing, breaking ground this summer. So that's super to get them have them as a partner. I still work very closely with Pacific Companies, who I have the utmost respect for, in doing Wilson Station. Also, we didn't even touch on that. Also, an amazing CCDC partnership. And I was just in there just yesterday with a housing group that, I'm on Gem State Housing Alliance board.
Good, yeah.
Which has been really eye-opening and also really interesting and fun. And we had a tour of Wilson Station, which was completed in summer of 25, which CCDC contributed. It ended up being just under $800,000.
As much as we could give, because you know how to get it. That's right.
I do, but also really a lot of public improvements there on State Street with the TOD.
I love the orientation next to the school.
It's cool.
It's really a neat project.
Yeah. It's a good one. I'm really proud of that one. So that was in partnership with the Pacific Companies. And then let's see. So for my Treasure Valley stuff, that's a lot of it. And then I do work still in California and other states around the region. Mostly I would say, cause I knew it, I learned that before CCDC, and, Idaho is amazing, but there are some we don't have a lot of tools for affordable housing in this state. And so there's other neighboring states that do. And so I ended up doing a little bit of work there up in Montana, did some planning that had led really kind of leveraging my CCDC experience to help plan a site that had been used as a transitional homeless facility. It's a pretty tough site. And it was a transitional facility that had come into play through COVID money and sort of never went away. And it was pretty tough, rough, I would say. And worked with a team, many of whom are out of Boise, to help that community and that redevelopment agency, the Missoula Redevelopment Agency, come up with a plan to create affordable housing, positive affordable housing, well-designed, beautiful affordable housing that has now gone out to an RFP for a developer to create. So the stuff that I was doing at CCDC, I've helped do that in other communities alongside their redevelopment agencies, which is really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Idaho and the state statute that enables CCDC to exist. And obviously we follow the rules very closely, but we do have special financial power that cities don't have, and we use it responsibly, obviously. You have a unique perspective, having been on the CCDC side of the table as well as your real life experience, and your career work. One thing I would like you to comment on is how you feel the tool of urban renewal, and it can be a Swiss Army knife, like I mentioned before, has been helpful in any projects that you've been involved in. How does this tool help bring it together, say, better, faster, more affordable? Your thoughts on the CCDC effect and the tool of urban renewal?
I mean, I can't support it enough in the sense of, there are parts of our communities throughout the state that need additional attention. And the market forces will not bring it, right? Like the market forces are not going to, well, we saw it at the Martha, right? That landowner was going to sit on it because they had very, very little basis in it. They were going to sit on it forever because there was a thing, the soils that were keeping them, they didn't have the expertise, the interest, the risk ability to really do anything with it. That would have sat there for who knows how long. So now you've got 48 units, you've got homeless off the streets into housing, you've got young nurses and teachers and public servants living there that can walk to downtown, that can get food across the way. That whole creamery strip has been redeveloped or reused, I should say. And I was really hoping the investment would be different there at one point in time, but it's happening. The whole Fairview corridor, is that Fairview? Yeah, sorry, good. Fairview corridor has been transformed with bus stops, great bike lanes. I mean, it is that kind of thing just will not happen because the private sector will not do those things in the same way. I mean, maybe eventually it could have been like a couple more houses. Maybe they would have sold it to somebody and built a couple more houses.
Yeah.
But I think what we got was a lot better. And that's just one. That's just one example.
Great example.
But I really think that urban renewal can step in and provide a little bit of a bump. Not a lot. It's not the primary. I mean, right, when it comes to the amount of money, but a little bit of a game changer to get a developer to look at something differently and make it better for the whole. So Idaho doesn't have a lot of tools for, say, housing or affordable housing, workforce housing, attainable housing, missing middle housing. But urban renewal is one that is a really good tool for it when it comes to just setting the table in a way that a good, a developer to do those residential units in that example could make, or a place to do a daycare when a daycare business is really hard to make work. So Wilson Station, created a bunch of affordable housing with a bunch of different sources, including CCDC and a daycare. That wouldn't have happened without urban renewal funds and other, public-looking pressures, if you will, because it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it takes a little, kind of harder work. But when you've got good partners, it makes it easier.
That's wonderful.
Does that help?
That's
I don't know.
great,
Is that right?
Yeah,
That is. I mean, it can just get people over the hump to doing maybe the right thing or a better thing.
Good. Well, no one knows it better than you. I mean, you've lived it on both sides, and really appreciate you spending time talking to me about this. Give me your 30-second description of the Gem State Housing Project. I know you're on the board.
Yeah, great. I'm honored to be on the board of the Gem State Housing Alliance. That it is the first statewide nonprofit focused on helping create more affordable and attainable housing throughout the state. So we're working really closely with local jurisdictions to kind of help identify what could happen in their communities to help create more housing and more housing types for Idahoans. That looks different in every community, but we're doing a lot of outreach, and Allie Robbie is the executive director. A lot of outreach with different groups throughout the state, working really closely with folks up in northern Idaho to help create smaller lots, for example, so that builders can actually build homes that Idahoans can afford versus just big, huge 10,000 square foot homes that are obviously expensive and maybe for folks that have come in from elsewhere. So it's something I'm really proud of. It's in its infancy. We have a great website, and I just look forward to kind of making as much of a difference as I can while being on that board.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ellen, for joining me today and for sharing all your experiences.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks, John.
Thank you.